a gold-backed economy, you grow every time you have a gold rush and you discover more gold, and everybody beats their brains out and extends all those calories to get it out of the ground, and so it has real meaning, unlike paper. Now, a curious thing is that in the long-term data from like 2004 or 5 or 6, I forget when we actually got it, we had this picture of a future pop that was out in 2041, in which there's this, basically I'd have to describe it as like a planetary catastrophe or crises, not necessarily catastrophe, but crises, in which it is necessary that a continent-wide effort be made to concentrate the social agenda of what we now call the United States. And in that social order, the local, all across the nation of the people that lived there at that time end up being basically a giant gifting society, and everybody gifts their gold to the collective for whatever the need of it is. And it's not to back paper, it's not a fiscal thing, it's some kind of a use of the gold, a need for the gold metal itself. So it was just a curious sort of a thing that it appeared as though gifting as a social structure would be more prevalent from the 20s onward.
Well, that would be a nice way to see things go. And I don't want to hog up all your time, so.
Sure, yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much for that answer.
Turd, you had a question for Clif?
On in the collection or the purchase of physical metal, and why folks seem to be going in that direction. It's been in my experience with the site and visiting with people around the globe, it's really for two reasons. It's one, it's as a potential unit of barter, kind of like what Clif is talking about. If there becomes a time for, based off a natural disaster or just the collapse of the currency or economic collapse, that you have this traditionally and historically accepted unit of value that you can barter for goods and services if fiat is no longer accepted. So it's an insurance policy for that. The other reason that people are buying precious metals is in anticipation of whatever the next international, unit of currency will be, is that once this fiat system, this Keynesian-based system, is proven to be comes to its natural end, that the world will turn back to some type of incontrovertible natural resource or hard asset-based currency. And the idea is that you can take your fiat money today and turn it into a hard asset, some gold or silver, to store the value of all your hard work that you have today, and then ultimately convert it back into whatever that new currency will be. So I just want to add that the question was, why are people doing this? And it's been my experience, it's those two reasons.
And basically, too, just speaking to that last, we have huge social orders now on this planet. Giant, India, for instance, there's a mega economy based on the little gold leaves that the women purchase and the farmers purchase as their storehouse of calories going forward into the future. There's an economy that is based on the trading of those in the form of dowry and daily trading. And they actually make a lot of sense because it's a personal way of having your wealth with you, doesn't involve banks, and so on and so on. So it's basically a large power issue at that level if you have the ability to control your own destiny. So the whole statement of honest money and all of the appellations that have been used relative to gold and silver over time are true, and it has only been since the evil era of Greenspan and Volcker et al. That we've had them try and castigate gold and silver as barbaric relics. And in fact, large areas of our, 1 billion people on this, in this planet right now can be counted on to accept gold and silver without hesitation. And that's the Hindu population. You start looking at the Mongolians and their tradition of all the nomadic people and their trading that way. And pretty soon, if you add it up, probably about a third or greater of the humans on the planet now are dealing daily in what we think of as precious metals. So we're kind of late to the party, really.
Thanks, Turd, and thanks, Clif. Green Meadow.
Hi, Cliff. This is more back to the global here. The Arab Spring was set off by events in Tunisia and Egypt, and Britain and Ireland seem to be forecast to be heavily featured in the coming global revolution data. Over the last week, London and other cities in England have erupted in riots, looting, and anarchy. It was reported that older youths using BlackBerry Messenger services, where all the messages were encrypted, have been instigating many of the riots, not the usual lower-income, disaffected youths using Facebook and Twitter on cheap mobiles. So that's kind of curious. Also, one of our forum members noticed that August 9th, the third days of these riots, was 33 days prior to September 11th. Does the data show that this is a ritual or plan by the powers that be?
They're participating in it. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if there's the problem. Our data will never be able to explicitly say that the cause of the Arab Spring was the self-immolation of a street vendor. But we do know that events like this, once they begin, are taken over quickly and used for the purposes of the powers that be. So, for instance, we've seen repeated uses of the 33 and double 11s recently. So, for instance, the SEAL team that was brought down was in a helicopter that seats 33 individuals, and so on and so on. I mean, just it's over and over and over again. So they're really seriously working it. So it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing encrypted MI6 technology in the form of the BlackBerries being used to coordinate the London riots, nor is it particularly unexpected to see how the powers that be are responding to them, because I think that their goal would be to take them over for their own purposes, which is to impose greater and greater levels of fascist control, very much like the mythical history that theoretically is the setting for the V movie, where Britain is under a chancellor and a Fourth Reich kind of a thing. We see that occurring. They're attempting to do it everywhere. They're going to use every little tool they possibly can. The question is whether or not they will be overtaken by events. Our data seems to suggest that the events will overtake them and their systems are going to break down much more rapidly than they'd anticipated. We're looking for some changes in how the social unrest will express itself. Now we're entering into a very dangerous phase of time here, and this affects everybody that asks questions and answers them, because real soon we're going to see officialdom start to label answers to questions relative to riots as inducement or incitement to further events down the road. They'll be using them as excuses, so we have to be aware of that and accept the consequences of the discussion of that. And we can, of course, attempt to shield ourselves by saying that we're not recommending violence and all of this kind of stuff. And I will explicitly say that I think violence is stupid, and it plays into the hands of the powers that be, who have schooled themselves in violence for the last 3,000 years. And so wake up, guys, if you're going to be in global rev, you've got to be really asymmetric about it and not fall into their traps. And it's easy, by the way, to not be violent and still bring the house down. You just have to reconcile yourself to doing a bit of thinking as opposed to simply reacting and letting the hormones take over.
Yeah, one of our other members who lives in the British Islands actually mentioned that the English police response to these riots seemed almost like they were encouraging it, that at other times they've had very strong police forces that really controlled the crowds, and this time they kind of seem to just stand back and permit things or almost encourage things.
They've actually corralled them, if you want to think about it that way. If you look at this as though it were a game of Risk, where they give you the world map and the little plastic pieces and you try and control the planet with your armies, and I don't remember the game that much, but I played it in the past. But if we looked at what's going on in England, it makes sense. If you go up to 30,000 foot elevation and look down what's going on. They don't want the riots to go out of London. They will sacrifice large parts of major cities as in an attempt to keep the riots at this stage contained and not allow the asymmetry of the system of the situation to overtake them. So they will actually do as what's his name, Sun Tzu in Art of War suggested, and that is to create the valley and choose the spot where you want the battle to take place. So they'll create opportunity to egg on, if you will, and incite those people such that they can hurt them up. And if you notice what's been going on recently, we've seen that there's a real reason they want them in London. They want to see these people in London because they can see them and record them and then do the facial recognition and arrest them later at their convenience. And also they'll use it as an excuse and be able to say, hey, we've got a video here of you rioting. Whether or not you did or not is immaterial. They don't even have to show it under British law.
Wow. So in the reports, it sounds like events in Ireland and England are going to have echoes throughout the collapse of the Anglo Empire. Is that correct?
They're not echoes. They're going to be like the points that establish the beginning of trends.
Okay. So it's going to end up looking kind of like the Arab Spring thing.
Well, if you want, no, I would say it's unfair to characterize the two as being similar. The root causes may be basically the same: starving people, no opportunity, the collapse of the fiat system, et cetera, et cetera. But the expression of what we're going to see continue through Britain and the Arab Springs are going to be different, probably because of the nature of the environment more than anything, and what the participation of the weather is going to bring into this. And Ireland is its own set of circumstances. The only real reason to discuss them was proximity. And we can't say a lot about the situation that will develop in Ireland because of not wanting to front load or also to place certain individuals at risk, just because we may have stumbled onto things.
So do you have any advice for people living in the British Islands?
Don't be stupid. Don't be violent. Okay, seriously, these people, I've seen it from the other side. I was a military brat for 17 years. I've seen my father go through the elite schools of the U.S. military and participated in helping him out with the homework and stuff. These people are very, very, very schooled in violence, and unless you've been well trained by 15 or 20 years in a martial arts discipline, you're a fool to even think about going on out and taking part in that sort of an activity. I'm not saying don't be disgruntled and don't take your country back, but I'm saying just be real asymmetric and smart about it. You needn't be violent to be very effective.
Thank you.
This program I would highly recommend. They've had some a terrific hour about time.
That one was amazing.
Wasn't that I had to back it up several times just to re-listen